actually think that that's one of the biggest kind of problems that is happening right now in like the psychedelic fields, and like everybody using and experimenting with psychedelics. And it seems like the pathway you're doing, in a way, it's, I want to say, the most healthy and the most safe, and it's like most likely to integrate and to it's like, also to me, it's like relational, because the thing with how we move around in the world is very relational, and to, to be able to relate in a healthy way, you have to be embodied. And so that's kind of how I see what you're saying with your approach to it.
Yeah, that's huge. And I would agree with your assessment of what's happening in the psychedelic fields right now. And yeah, it's almost like saying, if people are approaching the psychedelics because of their own wounding, meaning that they're suffering at some level, they have anxiety, they have panic, they have depression, they have depersonalization, they're just kind of feeling numb in the world, those kinds of things, then, I would suggest that most of our wounding is caused by human relationship, right? Basically, these are things that have happened to us in childhood, and human relational wounding requires human relational healing, right? So, in other words, as wonderful and powerful as the transpersonal experience can be, I think there's work to be done at the level of our humanness, at the level of our relationships, right? And the point you made with, in terms of, if people don't do that, then I think there really is an issue with integration. It's like wonderful to see these this transpersonal reality, the revelations that happen for people in that space. It's much harder to integrate those back into your life when your core programming is telling you very different things about the world and relationship, right? So I guess a way to describe that is, we find people with trauma have a lot of dissociation, not just when the trauma happened, but ongoingly, they have a lot of dissociation. So if you take somebody whose mind is, creating this dissociative defense to protect them against the traumatic memories of their past, and that person then attempts to go into a transpersonal space, they're going in there with a lot of dissociation intact, right? So there's sort of a lot of things that I think could be super helpful to have on board when you go into transpersonal space that we don't have on board if we're going in with trauma and if we're going in without body.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like you come into that state, and if you're dissociated in that state, it's almost like the experience doesn't penetrate deeply enough to transform you. So you have this incredible experience, and then you come out of it, and it just kind of slowly fades away and doesn't really stick.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Your system is so entrenched in a very different reality, a traumatic reality, a reality of neglect or abuse or abandonment. That lives in your tissue, right? That lives in the body, and that's not going to go away because you had a glimpse into, sort of the loving universe that we all live in.
Yeah. This part of the conversation is so important because I really, I interact with a lot of people in the psychedelic spaces, and I watch people, and there's a lot of people that have had a lot of experiences, and, with ayahuasca, 5-MeO DMT, which in my experience is, I think, the most powerful psychedelic. And you see them having these kind of spiritual experiences, and then still kind of going through suffering, still returning to these things many times. And it's almost like they keep trying to come back to that space because something is not resolved, something is not okay in the system. The system is craving for something is not right. So it's almost like this is what's being missed, I think, in the psychedelic field, is like, this is like, it's almost like, obviously psychedelics allow you to have these spiritual experiences, they allow you to have these transpersonal experiences, but it's almost like we should first start with this very basic healing part because it seems like from that we can grow and develop in the least pathological way and stabilize. And maybe people don't really need to do psychedelics as much as they're doing them. You know, maybe a couple of times is all that's really needed if it's done properly.
Yeah, ironically, I think that's true. I've heard a master of the Iboga tradition say that that medicine is something that people should only do maybe once in a lifetime. I think you're right. And I love how you put it that something is being missed. And that's why, we have this compulsion to keep coming back to the well, because it's not landing. It's not, it doesn't have a place to sort of really take hold inside of us. Yeah, I would agree. The one other way of looking at this is that, look, we have this incarnate reality that we're born into. Sort of, why not love the hell out of it while we're here? Why not sort of have this experience of body and ego in the healthiest possible way we can, as opposed to demonizing the ego and trying to transcend it? Right. So, yeah, I agree that ego is fantastically problematic when it's just identified as our waking, ordinary consciousness, rational mind. But I think it's possible to have an ego that is deeply informed by the unconscious process of being alive, deeply informed by sort of the experience and information that we hold in our bodies.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is like that's what embodiment is. That's what I think it means to be embodied.